Welcome to the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. I'm your host, Jacob Cooper, author of Life After Breath and the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. For those of you who are new to the podcast, please check us out here on our channel and consider hitting that subscribe button, as well as sharing your comments in the comments section. And you can also follow us and find us for the audio syndicated podcast on mindbodyspirit.fm. Today's guest in the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder is Shannon Kaiser. Shannon really leans into sleep health and sleep hygiene, and she's going to talk about her own personal and professional experience, as well as tips and tools to develop better sleep patterns and sleep hygiene so you can feel restored, connected, and your mind, your body, your spirit could be ready to take on each day to your fullest abilities. So, without further ado, we bring on author, coach, and just sleep support specialist Shannon Kaiser on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. Shannon Kaiser, thank you so much for being here as my honored guest on my podcast. It's so good to have you here and to meet you over this conversation.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. I've been really looking forward to chatting with you.
My gosh, you do such important work. I know we were chatting before, the interview went on that I personally was having, some bouts of sleep insomnia and working in the mental health field. I could first really speak to how significant, sleep is regarding our own, well-being, and that really hit me on a personal level. So the universe really works in mysterious ways to really have this conversation right when I was kind of going in the throes of it. But, for viewers who maybe aren't familiar with the work that you do, could you just speak a little bit more to the powerful work that you do and the mission that you're on? Because it's such a significant area in our well being.
Yeah, and speaking of signs and synchronicities, that's kind of how this work came about. I personally was having a lot of health issues and I didn't know why. Foggy brain, not able to recall different information. I was very stressed out. I was sleeping really bad.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until I started to see a holistic doctor where they recommended a sleep study. And it turns out that I had sleep apnea. And so that meant at night, my whole body wasn't getting enough oxygen. So my cortisol
Wow.
levels and my hormones were super high during the day, and it affected every single aspect of my life. So I really had to look at
Uh-huh.
this and recognize that sleep is so important for our health. At the time, I was teaching people how to be happy, how to follow their heart, but inside I was very stressed out and I didn't understand why I couldn't get through the day without being overwhelmed. And so it changed everything. And I started to recognize the power of science and spirituality and how they can come together to help us feel more whole and connected. And I radically improved my life and changed my life with lifestyle changes, making sleep just as important as the foods we eat and the exercise and movement we get for our body.
Wow. So for you, this was really personal. Um, and this is something that you went through firsthand. And as I always say, in my podcast, you want to find your purpose. I think look to your joy and also look to something that was painful because that will allow you a lot more passion as well as understanding to help out someone that was in the same shoes as you. Now, you mentioned the intersectionality of science and spirituality as it pertains to our sleep and well being. Could you speak a little bit to those? Because I'm fascinated from that, really a near death experience. So we really discuss, science and spirituality all the time, which I think gives a lot of credibility. But could you maybe speak a little bit to those two and how they speak, to sleep in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important because we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we realize that, especially here in your community. But what's really interesting is you can't really separate the two. Our bodies are vessels that are holding our soul. But when I talk about spirituality, it's also our essence and the intentions that we bring to our wellness and sleep health, if you will. Sleep health is its whole category. I was at the bookstore recently and there's a whole section with sleep books, sleep
Mhm,
mantras. Sleep has taken over, and just a few years ago, they didn't have that. So that shows how much science is catching up and the the literal and literary world is catching up to really what is important. To be on the planet, we have to be able to sleep well, and quite frankly, when you do go to sleep and you allow yourself to go into that dream state, which is
mhm,
that deep REM state, we get to go into a spiritual world. Our dreams are essences of us going into this place where we get insights into how we can live our waking life.
mhm. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, sleep people sometimes in the, spiritual community just think of it as something spiritual, but also forget how much of a recharge it is for the brain and how neuro-based it is and physiologically based it is. And sometimes people are too physiological based, forget how psychologically based it could be or subconscious it could be or spiritual it could be. I'm certainly glad that a lot of the literature is out there and a lot of the education. Why do you think right now in particular, so many people that I come across are including myself, and I could probably speak to that on a personal level, but that would be probably boring to viewers. Why
I
do you
think we'd love
feel
it.
why for your perspective, why do you feel so many people right now are having issues sleeping? What do you feel I'm sure there's a wide umbrella of it, but what are some of the findings and research that they're noticing these last couple of years? Because I've certainly seen an uptick in it in my personal and professional life.
Yeah, absolutely. Collectively, we are in a sleep epidemic, and the type of sleep that we're talking about is, from science and perspectives of
Mhm,
health doctors, if you will. They say good night's rest is getting 8 hours or more, 7 to 8 hours, sleeping through the whole night so you don't wake up a lot, and then also waking up feeling refreshed and like you can take on the day. These are indicators, and allowing yourself to actually go to sleep where you remember your dreams.
mhm,
How many of us actually do that? Like, I'm waking up every night, right? I'm tossing and turning. I have insomnia, and then I go back to, sleeping 12 hours a day sometimes when I'm overwhelmed. So I think what we have to look at is that's kind of the pillar, but that's not
mhm,
necessarily what we all have to strive for. We have to start with where we are. And most of us are so overburdened by the world. We're living in a time that wasn't really built for humanity. There's
mhm,
constant bombardment of messages, of different agendas, of different people needing things from us. I'm a recovered people pleaser, so it's like the personal, professional, and also cultural plays into it, as well as technology. We're bombarded with a lot of new technology and different rays and stuff out in the world that it's really affecting us. So, one of the things we can do is focus on sleep health and make it a priority with bedtime routines, getting
mhm,
ready, getting your body into kind of what happens is our central nervous system can relax when it knows it has a routine and it's signaling to itself, like, I'm safe. We don't feel
mhm,
safe in the world we're living in today, and that's the real issue.
mhm. It makes sense because sleep is the ultimate form of letting go. And for people right now who might be, and I've got friends of mine who are in war zones, they just don't know what'll happen to their roof at home, or just people bombarded by those messages. A lot of people, their adrenaline glands are on overload. They're in fight or flight. So sleep would be the last thing you could possibly do when that's the case. And so I could certainly understand that. Is there like a good I guess good sleep hygiene, tips that you have for viewers or maybe adversive or negative, sleep hygiene tips that you've personally and professionally been able to explore?
What a great question. Yeah, I think we have to look at both what's good and what's not working. And again, that idea of finding what works for you is really what I celebrate. And so in my book, 365 Happy Bedtime Mantras, it's over a year's worth of rituals, meditations, and possible routines to do because we have to find what works for us. It's not a cookie cutter thing. So when you think about what you need as a person, for example, maybe you can fall asleep with white noise, or some people
Mhm,
have, nature sounds and they sleep so well. Other times, people need it to be very, very quiet,
mhm,
pitch black in their room. Others like to have an open window. And I think what we want to do is experiment, but
mhm,
find what works for us. But in general, knowing that nature is very helpful for us.
mhm,
So, sleep health really starts when you wake up in the morning. I will go for a hike in the morning, or I make sure, to get out, not be under those fluorescent lights all the time. I make it a habit to look at the day, how am I living more mindfully so I can sleep better at night? And nature is one way. Drinking lots of water is very helpful so you're hydrated. And then also looking at your stress levels. What is stressing you out?
Mhm.
And a lot of the times it's relationships or it's jobs, financial concerns. And if we start to address those, we will find that we're sleeping better. And I have journal prompts and different meditations to address those in the book.
It makes sense. I mean, I found recently from personal experience in the last couple of days, I knew when I was gonna hit the bed, it was gonna be a good night, like in the morning or afternoon. And so from what you're saying, sleep doesn't start the second your head hits the pillow. It almost starts the second you wake up and some of your habits and what you do throughout the day. Is that correct, you would say,
It
in a way?
I really subscribe to that. I believe it because I've seen it firsthand. You know, when I first got that diagnosis, it's interesting, just personal story. I was on vacation with one of my best friends, and she lives in a different state, and I'm single, so I sleep alone. It's like me, my dog. So I didn't know my sleep habits, but when we were in the hotel, she said, "Oh my gosh, you weren't breathing. I thought you were gasping for air." And I said, "What?" And that's when I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "You were snoring." And I had to think about that. I had no idea. So I went to the doctor to see the sleep study expert, and that's when I found out. So sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And that's why we have to start to pay attention during the day of what clues and
Mhm,
cues our body is giving us. And if I were to be more aware at that time, which I am now because I've developed this whole process and really live by how I sleep is how I live, if I were to think about it, there were signs during the day. I had to take a nap every day. That's not really normal, you know? I mean, it is for certain parts of the population and age ranges, but I also felt like I had brain fog in the morning unless I had coffee. That's not really normal either. So these little clues we can look at and start to tune in. It's almost like a self-study, but as we do that, we become so much more empowered, and that's when we sleep better knowing that we are in charge of our own health.
mhm, mhm. No, it makes total sense, and I like that you mentioned the nuance of things and really being creative with things and knowing, like, what works with you. I mean, for some people some people will say, "Don't go on the phone before you go to bed," which I agree with, but personally, I find that knocks me out, you know? I don't
There you
know.
go. That's an example, right? Right?
It's like really universally, no technology, no lighting. I make sure to put the lighting on the lowest possible thing, but knocks me out. For other people, like, no, that keeps you up. So,
Yeah.
it's you're so right. But yeah, I like that you mentioned nature because I've noticed with a lot of my clients and myself on days where I will go for like a run outside, no woods versus run in the woods, my sleep is 10 times better when I'm going in the woods versus not getting that. So nature really does help out. Like forest bathing is, I think, the new age term for it, right? You know?
I love that. Yeah, that's exactly it, and I talk about moon bathing in my book, getting the moon's energy and the rays, especially on a full moon. There's a lot of energy with different aspects of nature,
Mhm,
but I think you're really touching on something that's so important. With nature, it's almost like you could bring houseplants into your bedroom, and that can help. It actually helps purify the air. It
mhm,
provides a calming effect. Nature scents, like essential oils that are really inspired by nature. I go as far as, crystals, right? I have crystals here. Crystals are from nature, and putting crystals around your bed, you know, that's elements that we could do and play with, but they really do help, and I find with my clients, specifically in my mindset coaching practice, when they implement these, they report back, "Gosh, I slept all through the night, first
mhm,
time in, like, you know, ages because I brought more nature into my
mhm,
bedroom." And nature sounds. I know many people who love the sound of nature before they fall asleep.
mhm. Talk about adjustments, because I think sometimes we all are changing, right? Each and every day we wake up a little bit different in so many ways. And so do you find like people need to make adjustments at different points in their life, to develop a better sleep routine? And do you feel part of the problem is A, we're not having the information, B, we're also just kind of doing the same old tricks that aren't working in a
Yeah.
way?
Yeah, I love this perspective, and that's a really insightful question because, yes, I find for us to do the same thing, it's like when you go to the gym and you work out and you do the
Mhm,
same routine. Eventually, your body gets used to it and it won't keep seeing new results. Whether you're trying to lose weight or gain weight or get stronger, the body will kind of stagnate. The same thing happens with our sleep state. So if you're doing the same thing year after year, month after month, it is going to stagnate you. And that's why it's so important that we tune in. But even more effectively is to say, what do I need right now? There are some times, especially me as a woman with different hormonal times, where I need certain things at certain times of the month, or I need basically based on what's going on in the season, I need different things. And that's when we tune in. And so this is actually about paying attention to the changes
Uh-huh,
that it really comes back to intuition. So when we bring in spirituality, it's very much connected
uh-huh,
to sleep health. What do I need? Not what my partner sleeping next to me needs or my family, but what does my body and my intuition tell me I need? And that's what actually led me to the sleep study. That's what led me to create bedtime routines, which is anything from 5 minutes to an hour before bed,
uh-huh.
starting to get your mind and your body into the moment. It's been life changing. So, yeah, go with the flow and change it up.
Yeah. So, viewers out there, when everything changes, change everything. It's okay to make changes.
I love that
Absolutely,
mantra.
including, there's a book by my friend Neil Donald Walsh, actually. But yeah, it's a title, one of the one of great sayings, but it's so true. And sleep is no different. Absolutely. Um, for people who might be getting into a bad rut in a way, and I certainly got into that myself, it could be very scary where you're having that. And I could speak from personal experience. You're up to like 4 or 5 every morning, no matter what you do. It's not working. You're getting frustrated. You're like, oh my God, every day of my life is going to be like this. And you start to go down that rabbit hole. Like, how could you speak to people who might be stuck for a period of time and thinking their whole life is gonna be like this? And also talk a little bit about the circadian rhythm in a way. Like, how could people get back in a flow, and how does that relate itself to sleep?
Yeah, the circadian rhythm is our natural ability to kind of fall asleep and go with kind of the energy of the world and what's happening, and it's very important for our sleep health. And when we are in kind of this stressful state, as you talk about changes, there are times in our life where we are rock bottoms, or we're in a dark night of the soul,
Mhm,
or we're going through very challenging situations outside of ourselves that we don't feel we have any control over, so it stresses us out. When these happen, it is important to recognize this is not my forever state.
mhm,
This too will pass. But what I often teach people as well is to reclaim their personal power, which means you're actually not powerless. Most of the state of anxiety and frustration comes from us feeling like we're completely powerless. And so it starts with, well, what can I control right now? I
mhm,
actually can't control that I'm in a litigation with someone or that my neighbor's not qualifying, whatever's stressing you out, right? I could give lots of examples, but I can control how I feel right now. And maybe I just need to take a nap. Maybe I need to drink more water. Maybe I need
mhm,
to look at my bedroom and feng shui it. And so you start to do this, and this changes the energy. Everything's
mhm,
energy. And when you stop focusing so much on the problem, but what you can do in this moment right here, right now, maybe it's
mhm,
just saging your house or buying a crystal in the listening to a great podcast, in the moment, right? When you stop, you start to say, "Oh my gosh, I feel, 1, more empowered because I'm not giving so much attention to the thing that is driving me nuts and pulling me down. And 2, I'm taking control of my health, my happiness, and my moment. And even if I can't see through it, right now I'm taking action to be better than I was before." It changes everything.
mhm. Taking ownership. And where would you say a part of that ownership does gratitude come into play before we go to bed? Because I find that that's important where, you reflect on your day, you reflect on what you're grateful for happened that day and what you're looking for forward to tomorrow. Is that something you would like a gratitude journal or practice also?
It's so wonderful to have a gratitude practice, and in my book, 365 Happy Bedtime Mantras, there's a couple processes that focus on gratitude, and we can take it even further. Having, before you go to bed, a journal where you just list what you're thankful for. If you're struggling with self-esteem or low self-worth, or you're feeling, not confident, you could write a letter to the part of you that you do love, right? That's gratitude as well. I have, different options that I share that are really powerful. Music therapy, make a playlist of songs that inspire you and make you thankful. And also, there's another option in there, call a friend who you're thankful for right before bed. So I do have that in there, or a family member, and just let them know that you're thankful. And so bringing gratitude into our life, even when you're going through some of the hardest things, this is when we want to be grateful. And it's not about blaming other people or blaming circumstances outside of ourselves. It's pulling back to yourself and saying, no, I'm in this situation. There's something I can learn from it. What can I be grateful for? Well, I can
Mhm,
breathe today. I have food in my fridge. I'm going to focus on good sleep tonight. Little things at a time, they really do add up.
mhm. Yeah, I love it. Sometimes I notice with clients or myself that when you're overly excited for life and you just wanna just live and you wanna enter tomorrow, sleep is hard, and it's like, I wish I could just push a button and just, like, go into tomorrow because I want that day so badly, and I don't wanna be compromised because I know I just love what's in front of me so much, and so, like, how could you speak to people who might be overly excited for life? They love it so much, and also they just wanna just push that button and just say, like, "Let me go to tomorrow. I don't have to
Forget the
go through
sleep.
all this." Yeah.
What a great question, because how many of us really feel like we're so excited for life? That's the goal. That's what we want. And I like to really focus on living life with meaning and joy.
Mhm,
And when we're doing that, we feel so fulfilled, and we can't wait for tomorrow. And that's something I think we should all kind of work towards, right? Like, how great would it be every night to be like, I am so excited for tomorrow. I can't wait. One thing we can do is, well, if you feel really awake and your body is awake and your mind is awake, I actually subscribe to the idea of not forcing yourself to go to bed. We're talking about
mhm,
sleep health here. But there was a time in my life when I was writing actually this book, and I was so inspired by doing the activities. And, there's other times when I'm launching programs or retreats that I'm so jazzed up that my everything's just really functioning. And I get maybe 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night,
mhm,
and I feel very balanced. And it's
mhm,
because I have more energy to focus on the creative projects. And I think what happens for a lot of people, especially my clients I see, they
mhm,
try to resist. I should be abed. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, but I should be asleep right now. And the world tells me I need to, something's wrong with me and I'm suffering. But the clients who really take on, okay, well, I'm awake. I might as well do something. They end up writing chapters of their books, the most
mhm,
inspiring moments. And we have to allow ourselves to be where we are. And when you do that, everything changes as well.
mhm. I like that you said that because, yeah, I mean, like, people freak out, and I was freaking out too if I was getting 3, 4 hours, but I'm like, "You know what? I'm fine." Like, I'm able to do stuff. My eyes are a little bit red, but, sometimes we worry, like, "Oh my god, is this a manic episode? Am I, like, do I bipolar? There's nothing wrong with that." But and also, it could be an energy thing too, where sometimes in your life, we just have more reservoirs of energy throughout those days, and that just could be much like the moon, has,
Yeah.
more potency at times too. We go through our degrees of cycles energetically.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because I notice every single month when it's a full moon, I hardly ever sleep.
Uh-huh,
I used to toss and turn and not know why, and then I started to realize it's when a moon is actually out in the world,
uh-huh,
full in its expression, and that's when I started to say, "Okay, it's a full moon week." I started to actually revolve and change my coaching schedule to not have coaching clients the next day, because I was so exhausted, right, to be
uh-huh,
awake all day, and then I would sleep through the day, and when I did that, my body would just feel so much recalibrated, and so I let my body dictate what it needed, and that is really something we can all do. But also recognize that if I'm not a doctor, you're not a doctor. If you really feel like something is off, trust that that's your intuition. And that's again when I was directed to go to the sleep study, I was like, something feels off. And once I went, I got the diagnosis and I was able to work with it and reverse the severity of it and create a lifestyle that could support it.
yeah. No, I love that. And it's so important if we're people who are helping others, we too should advocate for ourselves and walk the talk. And I'm so glad you did that. As did I. I was able to get, talk to a therapist, get some medications for the time being, and that was huge. And I'm sure that helped out yourself to understand the people that you work with in a much more refined way and gave you a lot more empathy and heart centeredness in the work that you do.
Yeah, everything that I do comes from personal experience really, because then I
Mhm,
can live it, breathe it, honor it, and understand and relate. And I think living a heart space business and doing the
mhm,
work that we do from the heart versus, only the mind is so important. I feel like that's what we're all here for, to get more in touch with our heart. And as we're talking, it's interesting because I'm so glad that you were able to get the steps you needed and you went with it. And now look, you're like, I feel better. And that's what it's about. We want to feel better instead of resisting and saying something's wrong. I need to fix this. It's actually just approach it more like an experiment, like, well, this is what I'm experiencing right
Mhm.
now. And I'd like to feel better than I did before. So what can I do?
Yeah. Don't gut it with, like, a militant approach too, and I think it's and I sometimes am guilty of this, but a lot of people, they just try to muscle life all on their own. And you could pick up a book by Shannon Kaiser or talk to your, psychiatrist, therapist, or just holistic practitioner or, just go to a yoga class, something. Many heads are better than one head, and we're all in this to do it together. And part of it too is not only are you getting help, but you're also helping that person work out their karma. Where would we be if everyone was perfect? And that's a part, of kind of the seesaw in life. When one goes up, and you're there for another, and we're all kind of in this together. No one's better than someone else. We're all helping each other out in our own unique ways
Yeah.
at different points
And
in time.
And I think that ties back to what you were saying earlier about, when people are really in a heavy space in their life or
Mhm.
struggling. I know that in my life, I've had a lot of different moments of rock bottoms, spiritual awakenings, struggles, just ego deaths. And each time, each situation, I really went into it and then I rose even higher. And I think we have the capacity to turn our pain into power. And with what you said, you become a beacon of light when you can help others with what you know. That's what we need. We need like the way showers. So if you're going through something now, just be compassionate with yourself. And if you're open, I'd love to pull a mantra from the book and show kind of the process. Would that be good?
Absolutely. And yes, but before we do that, viewers, just listen to what Shannon said. If you're going through that dark night of the soul, on the other side of it is always growth, transformation. Write it out. Be gentle on yourself, self compassion. And it's going, the way out is through. You're going to get through this with help, with support, and you're going to come out transformed. No question. But yes, Shannon,
Yeah.
please mantra it out. Let's have this
Yes.
whole interview as a mantra. But yes, so this
It
is
is. It's like
Shannon's book,
biteable little pieces,
365
right?
Happy Bedtime Mantras. So the whole books are mantras. Yeah.
They are, and then with each book, with each page, you can do it one page at a time for a whole year, or you can open to any page, and that's what I'm gonna do right now, is I'll just open, and we'll get a mantra and a little bit of, guidance and then a ritual. And
Love
so
it. Love it.
I got night 188, and it's the mantra, "I walk through my concerns and take the next step." So it's nice when you pause for a moment and think of that because it's like it's not just a sleep mantra, it's something to reflect on the day of maybe what's keeping you from sleep. So your concerns could be overpowering you and making it hard to move forward right now. Maybe you want to start a new project or get back into something that you used to love, but you find yourself procrastinating. This could be a sign that maybe you're overthinking the outcome. Will it work out? What will people think? Will it be successful? Am I going to fail? All of these worries are keeping you from feeling better in this moment. Perfectionism kicks in, and then most likely you stay stuck. So consider
Mhm,
for a moment that the concerns you have about the situation are more detrimental than the actual situation itself. This
mhm,
project or idea has come to you for a reason, so recognize the release and focus on taking the next step. And then there's just a process here where you can repeat the mini meditation. I acknowledge and release my concerns. They don't hold me back. I'm inspired and I choose progress over perfection. I'm choosing to move forward on what feels aligned. And then there is a ritual for rest. And tonight before bed, try rhythmic chanting. Repeat the
mhm,
word Om and concentrate on the sound. Om. And feel the vibration of the chant resonating with you and how it
mhm,
feels in your body. If your mind wanders, you can simply bring it back to this chant, and this will help you be more present and focused.
mhm,
So it's a nice little process, and you see how it works. There's a mantra and a meditation, but we can all do that by thinking, wow, it's just a nice self reflection moment as well.
mhm. I love it.
Mhm.
And it seems like a lot of good sleep hygiene is very mindfulness rooted.
It,
As to
it
kind
is.
of illustrate, we could perseverate over events to come, but the job is to be where you are, and to like, you're not at that project, you're not at that work meeting, you're right there in your
Yeah.
bed and to be present, as you're saying, right?
Yeah, and I think from a physical standpoint and kind of an environmental space, we can look at making our bedroom more, do you like the sheets that you're sleeping in? Is it the type of
Mhm,
fabric that,
mhm,
you like? I switched. I used to always do cotton sheets and then I discovered linen. I was
uh-huh,
like, this is amazing because it helps me sleep better as a cool sleeper and, bringing more like different things into your environment. But you can do all that. That's the foundation. If you're doing all that and not addressing the mind, it's not going to
mhm,
work. It is mindfulness first, right?
mhm. Yeah, no, I noticed I have everything rocking and rolling in my place, but the mind wasn't cool. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I practically live in like a salt cave, as you can see behind, it's like
Love it.
everything, nothing wrong with that. And it's just like, all right, no, I'm checking off all, but you're right. It starts there
Y
100%.
yeah, and I think this is also kind of an indicator and a mantra for our life, right? And I think A Course in Miracles talks about the outside world
Mhm,
is a reflection of our internal state.
mhm,
But if we start on the inside, how am I feeling? That will be reflected on the outside. And so it really does go well together. If you're thinking about sleeping better, look at your environmental space, but also think, how am I feeling? What am I doing to address the biggest stressors in my life? And how can I be more kind and compassionate to myself today? You'll be golden. You'll be sleeping like there's no tomorrow.
mhm. Yeah, love it, love it. One of my final questions is I'm often asked by clients who are having very distressing dreams, and I'm gonna go out on a limb. I don't know if this is a forte, but I know you mentioned obviously astrological influences could influence our sleep, including the moon. Certainly, I'm experiencing right now with the sun in Gemini, which is very much a mental state, and Geminis themselves tend to be very much in their heads a lot. But it's very intellectually stimulating. But for people who are having nightmares or fearful of nightmares, is there any routines that they could have that you recommend from a particular type of crystal or energetic works that they can do to
Absolutely.
just,
Mhm.
have kind of like psychic self defense in a way before they go to bed?
Yes, absolutely. I love this because it is about energy, right? And so, if when we're talking about crystals,
Mhm,
a black tourmaline, anything black onyx is really good for removing negative energy and it actually protects. I had one over here, I could hold it up, but I think it's over on the other side of the room. I talk in my book about certain crystals you can keep under your pillow to protect and ward off, right? And black tourmaline is one. Amethyst is another one that helps you manifest from clarity from your heart space. And citrine or just, is a really good balancer of energy. I
mhm,
also think there's something very powerful that I started to do. I felt like there was a lot of psychic attacks. I was going through a period of my life where there was a smear campaign going on about me and I was being betrayed by best friends. It was just a big
mhm,
dark night of the soul. And in that experience, I started to do energetic work because in my dreams, I kept having dreams about these people who were like stealing money from me and they really were in my real life.
mhm,
So there's two parts. One, you can surround yourself with blue light and
mhm,
just energy. So just picture your house or your bedroom with like an energetic, they say white light, but blue, kind of cobalt blue,
mhm,
really protects. It's a beautiful energetic space. And I started to do that and I started to recognize my dreams were more peaceful.
mhm,
However, I want to touch on nightmares. Sometimes what seems like a nightmare is actually a really good dream to help you clarify how you can work through what's problematic in the waking life.
mhm,
So there's symbols we can ask before we go to bed. Spirit, higher self, universe, God, whatever it is that you align to, my higher self, angels, help me clarify this situation. Give me guidance in my dream tonight. Pay
mhm,
attention. You might get symbols, you might get different insights, and then dream journal it. And I'm constantly working with my dreams now, almost in a psychic way, to really navigate different situations. Those things that look really scary are
mhm,
sometimes the biggest breakthrough you can have.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, at times, dream language is much different than our logical, linear language, and they speak in, I mean, death could be a rebirth. It doesn't necessarily, mean,
Yes.
much like
Yes,
a tarot
exactly.
card. Yeah, things could be very paradoxical. Um, but yeah, you're so right. It's very important for viewers really to have that journal. And I think if you're meant to remember it, you will. But write it down so you really are able to have those details. And then I would say use your research with reputable sources to really understand some of the psychological symbols as messages for your daily life to grow and evolve from.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. It's really powerful because again, it's all part of the kit for your wellness, right? And you
Uh-huh.
start to put them all together and you again feel more empowered.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and you also, I think, made up, not discussed a very important topic where, at times, yes, we could have dreams where if we're perseverating over certain things during the daytime, sleep is kind of like that too. And so I think for you recommend if you want to really have better sleeps, you have to work on the day and how it starts and, approaching it differently so that some of those thoughts, are able to be worked out and those dynamics to be worked out.
It's exactly it. It's you if we were to just focus on our bedtime routine, what is my environment?
Uh,
Am I, turning off my screens right before bed?
uh,
Am I in bed really just mellowing out? All that is good, but if you're still carrying the day into the night, it's kind of going to be fleeting and it's not going to help you get as good night of a rest. So what we want to look at it as like a whole body wellness routine. It's almost like mind, body, spirit and the foods you eat during the day. You ever notice if you have a really big meal right before bed,
uh.
sometimes you get, I don't know, I get heartburn sometimes, or I'm like, oh, I can't sleep. That was just a giant meal. These things really make a difference. And so you start to be more aware. And as you do this, it's really about self love. You're showing yourself that I matter, I care about myself, and I'm worthy of my own time and attention.
Mhm. Love it, love it. Shannon, is there anything else that you wanted to discuss or any other things that are coming to your mind? I mean, you've offered such helpful information to viewers and tips and tools and things of that sort. But yeah, I was just wondering if there's anything else that is on your mind.
Well, I think what's really special is we come to, podcasts and stuff like this to get information, and a lot of it will resonate with you, or you're like, huh, that's something new, or I already know that. And what's really great is just going into your own heart and saying, I'm really excited about the journey I'm on. I'm learning, I'm doing the best I can. And I wanted to actually share my mantra in the book that is the final one. It's my favorite. People sometimes ask, what is your favorite mantra in the whole book? And it's, night 365, and we can leave ourselves with this is, "I awaken from my dream state and ascend into unconditional love."
Hmm. Love it. I awaken from it, and I love it. I love it. Yes. And, for viewers who are, I'm sure, loving every word that you say, Shannon, and all the mantras, tell us where they could find you as well as your books. Where's the best place to do, one or both? Because I really would recommend them exploring that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Happy Bedtime Mantras is available all bookstores and online, so
Mhm.
that's really exciting. You can get that. You can go to my website, playwiththeworld.com, and I have courses. I'm doing coaching right now. One-on-one is open for the summer, and I'm on social media with Shannon Kaiser Writes, and I'm always sharing positive messages, uplifting messages to help us feel better in the moment right now.
Love it, love it. Please do check her out on socials, her website, for classes and individualized work, as well as her book as well. Well, Shannon Kaiser, it was a true pleasure having you here. Thank you for all the wonderful work that you do from working in the mental health field. Personally, I can't tell you how significant sleep is and the work that you're doing. So keep at it, and thank you for the beautiful work that you're delivering to humanity.
Thank you. It's been so great to be here with you.
Thank you. Well, that was a wonderful conversation with Shannon. It hit home on personal and professional measures, and I hope it did for you too, as sleep is just so important to our life. And the key is there's so much wonderful resources and information, and we were able to have it right here, on the channel. So Shannon is a wonderful resource for all of you, really looking to improve on your sleep routine and your sleep health. So I do really recommend checking out her work as well as her book, published by Beyond Words Publications. So do check that out. And thank you all for tuning in. I hope you really enjoyed this conversation or were able to get a lot of tips and tools. As to me, sleep is the most important thing, to really feel our fullest vitality. It starts there. And Shannon's leading into a very important issue on our human journeys to maximize our experiences. So thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you here next time on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. Be well.